Okay, we can call the meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. Welcome to the August 21st, 2023 meeting of the Library Commission. This is a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the public participating in person at the Menlo Park Library in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and public participating remotely. We'll do a quick roll call. Run by
Carol Orton,
Katie Hadrovich, Jennifer Wise, Ada Chenreiki.
and myself, Vamsi Veligapudi, and staff present. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Sean Reinhardt, Library and Community Services Director.
Nick Shegda, Assistant Library and Community Services Director.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Nick is also the staff liaison with the Commission. Nick will be helping facilitate the meeting. Nick, will you please take a moment to provide instructions to the Commission and members of the public in attendance on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Veligapudi. For members of the public who are attending virtually and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. For those of you who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure that your first and last name are updated on Zoom, or you may provide your name and the spelling as you are called to speak. Public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes in length. For members of the public here in person, there are some speaker cards available on the table back there. Please complete one and turn it in to myself before public comment is called for the item you wish to speak on. There are a large number of public commenters. The time limit may be adjusted by the chair in order to allow everyone a chance to comment. When your turn for online public comment has arrived, staff will unmute you. With that, I'll return the meeting back to the chair.
Thanks, Nick. So we'll move to item C, public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You're not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. The Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Do we have any public comment on items not appearing on the agenda?
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on any items not on the agenda tonight, please notify us by using the raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, use *9 to engage that raise hand function. No in-person public comment. And no public comment from our attendees.
Okay, thanks. Nick, would you mind letting us know if there's anybody on the Zoom or how many folks?
There are 2 folks as attendees on the Zoom tonight.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. So move to item D, regular business. Under regular business, the Library Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Library Commission approval. The first item D1 is to approve the minutes from the July 17th, 2023 meeting. Nick, do we have any public comment on this item?
At this time, if you'd like to make a public comment on item D1, approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2023 meeting, please notify us by using that raise hand feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen, or if you're dialing in, use *9 to engage the raise hand function. There's no public comment in person tonight. And no comment on this item online.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Any questions, discussion from the Library Commission? Would the Commissioner like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Thanks, Commissioner Hadrovich.
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Orton.
All right, we're going to take a roll call vote on this. This is for the approval of the minutes from the July 17th, 2023 meeting. Commissioner Chenreiki, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Hadrovich, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Orton, how do you vote?
Approve.
Commissioner Wise, how do you vote?
Approve.
And Chair Veligapudi, how do you vote?
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously.
Move to item D2, which is to recommend the Library Commission work plan for 2023 to 24. Nick and Sean, do you make a brief introduction to the item?
Thank you, Chair. Let me pull it up and share it on the screen here. And all the commissioners see that in the building here. So we had this as a study session last month, and then sort of took it away and did a little bit of work on it, bringing it back now for your recommendation. None of this should be a surprise, hopefully, to the commissioners. But if you have any comments or questions, discussion, we'd like to hear it after public comment. I think we had basically added a couple of new items, ones that were about taking a look at the budget proposal and taking a look at the strategic plan. Also, there was something that was a little new that was about keeping track of how library users might be accessing the library, if there were any changes, and the impact of technology on the provision of library services. The other things I think are carryovers from your previous year work plan, and we elevated the notion of the commission as a forum for public information and communication about library issues.
So Nick, do we have any public comments on this item?
Stop sharing here just for ease of taking a look at the attendees. At this time, if you would like to make a public comment on item D2, recommend the Library Commission work plan for 2023-24. Please use that raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, use *9 to engage the raise hand function. In person, I do not see any public comment on this item. And I do not see any public comment from our online attendees. Back to you, Chair.
No commission discussion. Okay, so I think Nick did a pretty good job of trying to capture most of the items from the meeting. So if anybody have any thoughts?
I just have a comment that I appreciate that you did a red line so we could see the old one and what the edits were, and it made it easier to keep track. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Sean, who did the red line.
Sean, thank you.
Thank Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
I thought it was real, I really like it. It's great. I think it encompasses everything we talked about, concerns.
Same. I thought I captured the feedback and the discussion really well.
Yes.
I'm conscious that the trick is to actually get these items onto the agenda so we can actually talk about them. So we can maybe come to that when we get to the calendar as well. But yeah, thanks for incorporating that. Sorry.
Oh, no, I was just being agreed.
Then I think we have to actually recommend it. So would the commission like to make a motion to recommend the work plan for 2023-24?
We recommend it to city council. Is that right? Is that how it works?
Right, we have it tentatively scheduled for the city council to approve it on September 26th. And right now we're looking at having it go forward with 4 or 5 other commissions that are also doing the work plans, because they all do them in September.
So we don't send a representative. It's just something they do where they approve all of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the representative would go to kind of just give a presentation about the commission's activities, not necessarily for submitting a work plan.
But does it happen on, I'm sorry, I just don't, I remember we used to do this, but I'm not clear. Does it happen on the same night, or it doesn't have to? We don't have to have a presentation to council the same night they're looking at our work.
I don't
plan.
think so, not this year. In past years, there's in different commissions have handled it differently. The commissions have sent like a representative to present the work plan. However, this year, and I think in the past couple of years, the work plans have really just gone to the city council on like the consent calendar. Like they don't even discuss them unless they have a question, and they save that presentation for another time when it's not about the work plan, but more about what are the current activities of the commission.
Thank you, thanks for clarifying.
Well, I do think it's worth having somebody attend, myself or somebody else, on the meeting if somebody's available. Not necessarily to provide a full presentation, but just to highlight one or two of the items. I think it's worth making it public. And I think so. We'll be having another library commission meeting before that meeting, so we can maybe just agree in the next meeting, like any 2 or 3 items we want to highlight publicly and verbally. I'd be happy to do that, or if somebody else would like to do that.
Does the council invite us to come, or we can say we want to show up on that date?
Great question. So the format at this point in time for city council to approve the work plans is on their consent calendar, which means that normally they approve multiple items just in one motion, and they don't have any discussion or presentation unless there's a question. Now, they do take public comments on the consent calendar, so that would be the opportunity to, make a public comment and say, oh, hey, I'm from the commission and we voted for this, and anything you wanted to highlight, but it's not necessary.
And when is it gonna be on their consent calendar?
Tentatively, it's September 26th. September 26th.
I think it's a great idea for you to go. I mean, as the chair, I think it's always good to have a face of who's the chair, the current chair of any commission, and then, they do get to know you.
Yeah.
So I would be in favor of you doing that, but I wouldn't want it to be a burden where you were there till
No.
midnight waiting for the consent calendar,
I
but
welcome this. Maybe what I could do is, I'll just gonna prepare a few short comments on behalf of the commission, which I can share for our next meeting, commission meeting on September 19th-ish, something like that. So in case anybody has any objections to it, and you have a chance to tweet at that point, then I'll deliver those in public comments.
that's what I did when I did it as well, and it seemed to work really well. Absolutely nobody pushed back on anything I was gonna say, so.
So we can
I
make-
will comment that might our next meeting change though? Aren't we supposed to have a meeting jointly with,
It might, but
Yeah.
it should still fall
before the 20th?
before the
26th.
26th.
Okay.
I think I made a note here on the chair notes. Oh, no, it would be the 28th. It depends on whether we take the library commission meeting date for the joint meeting or the Parks and Rec Commission meeting date for the joint meeting. So library commission meeting date is the 18th. Parks and Rec Commission meeting date is the 28th of September.
Not to
That
get
would
ahead of
be
ourselves,
after.
we could talk about it on the tentative agenda.
Yeah.
But I think staff would recommend going with the earlier date, just because the naming process, is a big process, so the earlier the better. It started.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And just in case, I can also, via Nick and Sean, share the comments with commission. So if anybody has any objections, again, via Nick and Sean, you can share it back. In case we don't get the chance to meet before that.
Well, then I would be the person that recommends the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hadovich. And do we have a motion second as well?
I can second.
Thank you, Commissioner Recchi.
So the motion on the floor is to recommend the library commission work plan for 2023-24. I'm gonna go ahead and do that roll call vote again. I know some of you have already motioned and seconded, but I'm just gonna do it for our remote participants. Commissioner Chen Reiki, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Hadrovich, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Orton, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Wise, how do you vote?
Recommend.
And Chair Veligapudi, how do you vote?
Recommend.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Commissioner Recchi or Commissioner Chen Recchi?
Chen Reiki,
Chen
that's fine.
I don't understand. Okay, so we move to item D3, which is recommend the updated policy for library user privacy, library exhibits and displays. And you can Sean make a brief introduction.
A very brief introduction. Let me see if I can pull them up here. I sort of lost them for a moment. Bear with me. From time to time, as we did last meeting, the staff will bring updates to policies that we'd like you to take a look at and make sure we are on the right track. So we have two before you tonight. The first one is for library user privacy, and the second one is for library exhibits and displays. So after we take public comment, happy to put them up on the screen and hear any comments from the commission about these two policy updates. So I'm gonna wait to put it up on the screen because I can't see anybody when I'm taking public comment. But that's all I have for a presentation. It's
Yeah.
that it's just kind of a couple of policy updates. They were in the packet, so if you've got questions, then we'd be happy to hear them. Questions, comments, additions.
I think the only thing I would add is that these are sort of new policies in writing anyway. They're sort of codifying in writing kind of current practices that haven't yet been captured in a written policy presented to the commission. So that's why there's no like red line version. They're kind of made out of whole cloth here.
So, okay, so Nick, do we have any public comments? on this item?
At this time, if you would like to make a comment on item D3, recommend updated policies for library user privacy and a policy for library exhibits and displays, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You're dialing in, press *9 now. There is no in-person public comment on item D3, and I see no remote participant public comment at this time. Back to the commission,
Any questions or discussion by the commission?
and I can pull them up on the screen if you want to take a look at them. Up to you guys.
The only question for me is there anything else in any other part of the council which has a privacy set of guidelines as well? And is there anything different? Or is just that is the library the main place where you'd have user data? I can imagine the recreation people have that user data as well, which may not be as sensitive.
Right, because there's user data involved with, say, registering for classes and things like that. And we're working on a user policy for the recreation side of the house. We just didn't get it together. I think certainly in the library team, there's a really strong interest in protecting library user policy. A couple of things that were mentioned in the policy were American Library Association statements on user policy, user privacy, and protecting and preserving user privacy for library users. So I think we have this one sort of more fully baked. The other ones are often kind of managed a lot, well managed. There's a lot of privacy statements and legalese boilerplate about the different softwares that people are using. But the library user one has a little bit more because it's people's borrowing history and things like that. Just kind of laying it out there about what we do and what we don't preserve, and how long we do and we don't preserve the information that we do hang up to.
I think that's great to have in writing and for people that are curious about it and want to know. Where would a casual observer find these? Like if a person, will they be published on the library website if someone wants to know a little bit more about what's happening with my content?
Yeah, that's the idea. We have a page that has departmental policies, and it would be posted there once it was recommended by the commission.
I may just have a question. Have there been any issues of anybody requesting information on users, or has that never actually occurred? So it's good to have a set of policies and how we guideline it, but I just wanted to check if anybody we've ever had to publish them in any way.
I can't think of any. On occasion, we'll get inquiries from the police department, not usually about borrowing records. Often it will be because they're investigating a crime or a suspected crime, and they're looking for footage from our cameras that they think might help them. But those sorts of things we don't just sort of turn over unless there's a formal request and a warrant for that sort of information. We don't voluntarily just sort of chuck information around. So I can't think of, in my 30 years here, not that I'm aware of, any sort of legal request warrant for library user information.
There, certainly have been more informal requests, I think at the frontline staff level. Folks will just decline to share, like, for example, someone might come to a library staff person and say, oh, hey, can you look up my relative's library card record so I can find out the book that they were reading because we want to get the same book again or something like that. And that's actually against our privacy policy. Only the card holder can get that information. And in some cases, we actually don't even retain that information since the Patriot Act was put into law back in the early 2000s in the wake of 9/11, you may recall. And then there's some other situations where folks might be seeking information about someone else's library card that this privacy policy kind of covers and prevents. So we might not even hear. Nick and I, for example, might not even hear about a number of those requests because it's pretty standard operating procedure to say you have to have the card, you have to be the card holder to get that information.
Questions? Okay, then would the commissioner like to make a motion to recommend these policies?
I'll move to recommend adopting these updated policies
Thank
as
you.
listed in D3.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkin. Would someone like to second? Thank you, Commissioner Wise.
All right, the motion is to recommend the updated policies for library user privacy, library exhibits and displays. Commissioner Chen Reiki, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Hadrovich, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Orton, how do you vote?
Recommend.
Commissioner Wise, how do you vote?
Recommend.
And Chair Veligapudi, how do you vote?
Recommend.
The measure passes unanimously.
Can I ask a question? When we're recommending these, are we recommending that you adopt them or are we recommending them to council to approve them? I'm confused.
Yeah,
why they're
in this
recommended.
case, since it's just an operating policy, we just put them into practice.
Got it.
But we do like to, for transparency and to get any feedback you might have, we like to bring them to the commission.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's informational items. Informational items are transmitted to the Library Commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the Commission. Informational items are not action items. However, a commissioner, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. The first one is the department updates. Nick, provide a brief introduction.
Just quickly, so we started last month, 2 months ago, bringing these statistical things and got some feedback from the commissioners that it would be helpful to see year-over-year statistics. So in the statistical, where we could provide year-over-year statistics, we have started to provide year-over-year statistics. The bulk of these statistics are also publicly available through the California State Library Statistical Portal. If you ever want to dig in and compare our library statistics with other libraries, which is something that staff does every once in a while. The only thing I would caution about that is to kind of make sure you're comparing apples to apples, comparing a library of our size, a town of our size, and with towns of similar size, and I would say composition, so and budget level, to make sure that you're comparing. We are often comparing ourselves, staff are, to cities and programs that are geographically close to us, but there are some differences between, say, Palo Alto, Redwood City, smaller San Mateo County branches, and then the Parks Library. I could pull them up as well, if you'd like to look at them. I'm sorry, also in the updates there is the suggestion box, suggestions and responses. Happy to talk about any of those if anyone has any questions.
Okay, so Nick, do we have any public comments on this item?
Sorry, I sort of took up all the public comment, I think, with my comments. At this time, if anyone would like to make a public comment on item E1, the department updates, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, please press *9 to raise your hand. There is no in-person comment. And I do not see any comment from our online participants.
I always enjoy reading the comments. that come in to the, I mean, it really is, you take it for the whole city. This is a good, comment. I don't know if there's any other departments that have a comment board or not, because we do get them, I know, for every facet of the city, but it really seems to be a great outlet for the community.
Thank you. I think other departments do collect suggestions. I just think we have the most robust participation because we physically have physical boxes at every counter, and we also have an online form, so. And library users, for some reason, like to write. I don't know what that's all about.
I was looking at this last night and I thought it was really cool that the library program attendance has jumped so much in July. Like it basically hit 1,600 in the month of July. And I was curious, was that the reading program or what?
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yes, so we
That's so
see,
cool.
we put on a lot more programs for summer reading and kids are out of school. And so we see greater participation in programs. Speaking of which, the summer reading is coming to an end on the 31st of August. There's going to be a closing party here at the main and at the Bellhaven branch libraries. So looking forward to that. But this year it seemed like people were feeling a little more comfortable about getting back out there and doing stuff as part of the
Oh, that's
community.
so great.
You know, related to that, I came for the trivia night, and I don't know if any of you were in attendance. It was mobbed here for that. That was, my sister was in town and we came and we participated, and it was challenging and fun and so crowded with adults and children doing this thing over 3 different units of the library. I mean, I was really excited by how many adults were competing with me to figure out those clues. So, I mean, bravo on that, really well done.
Thanks. Pass that along. It was a lot of fun to do.
And good costumes as well. So I attended my daughter, so did a very good wizard impression.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I had one other question and comment related to the statistics that you gave us, and you said you can look those up yourself, you can look at them anytime, but I thought they were really great also, just as a quick, cursory read it. Oh, wow, this is really interesting. Will that report that you pulled together be something that would be on the library website too? Just that I mean, I know it'll be in the minutes, so it's already published publicly for anybody that wanted it, but is that something that would be on the library's website that just anyone in the community could take a look at?
It's something that we've talked about before, having a sort of dashboard, or an annual report kind of thing where we sort of report out to the community. So, but since we're already producing this, I think it would be pretty easy to put it on the library website.
That's a good suggestion. I mean, at a minimum, we could at least post this PDF to start with. And as time allows, maybe develop it into something that's more like HTML in the website. So yeah, great suggestion. Thank you. Yes, we can do that.
Yes,
We actually have a lot more control over the website now. It's true.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay. With item number 2, library community services strategic plan update. Nick will provide a brief introduction.
So just quickly, we're not going to dive into the strategic plan here, but it was something that the commission wanted to put on their annual work plan. So just kind of previewing it here so you get a look at it and see how far behind we are and kind of checking in on it. We're about a year or so behind. We wanted to do it at least annually, and we're a year late on updating and reporting out on it. Some of the goals still apply and will carry forward, I'm sure. Some of the goals no longer apply because they have to do with reopening after COVID, which is what we were very concerned with at the time 2.5 years ago. So but just a chance for you guys to take a look at it, to get it out there so that when we do bring back a plan update or a plan scorecard, you've got some background information already in hand.
Is there a timeline for when that will happen?
Well, I think the next two commission meetings are probably going to be focusing on the naming for the Menlo Park Community Campus. So probably, and then we get into the holidays, so I don't want to promise, but I'd like to bring it back by the end of the year. So because it's been, we're overdue. But we'll have to see how it works out. I think at the very least, we could get an informational item in which has like a draft update so that you guys can see the work that we've done to like report out and kind of clean up the work plan. And then that would give you something to sort of work off of going forward.
So Nick, do we have any public comments on this item?
At this time, if anyone would like to make a comment on item E2, the Library and Community Services Strategic Plan Update, use that raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, press *9 to use the raise hand function. No public comment in person. And no public comment from our remote participants.
Yeah, open up for the live commission. Maybe just one question, because we're echoing Commissioner Hamilton's earlier questions. Is this something that would be discussed with council? So would they need to approve the strategic plan, or is this more sort of guidelines for how you operate over a multi-year period?
Yeah, the council's usually not getting into the sort of nitty-gritty of running the departments, which is what this is. This is a plan for the department going forward. It will certainly be presented to the council because it was last time, pretty sure we presented it to the council. Yes, I'm almost positive we presented it to the council.
It was like as an attachment to a longer report that there was no discussion or anything.
Right.
It was like kind of just submitting it to them.
So they don't usually get, they leave that to the city manager through the department heads to sort of do the running, the day-to-day business of the city.
Will the hurdles you have to jump to create your strategic plan be dependent on what the budget decisions are? Or are you, I mean, will some of it be streamlined maybe, or put on a shelf for later if you have a tighter belt? Or is this stuff that you pretty much the whole thing will stay in place, even if it's a little aspirational, no matter what the final decisions?
Budget and resources are always a consideration, and so that's part of the purpose of creating a strategic plan. So you know, really kind of have a good sense of like, hey, what are we planning to do in the short term and the long term? Are these goals reasonable? Are they achievable? And to Nick's earlier point, that's a good reason to revisit the plan at least every couple of years, if not annually, because things can change. So if so like, for example, the pandemic completely upended the
Right,
strategic plan we had in place, and we went back and completely revamped it. And now that we are finished with the pandemic, we'll revamp it again. So to your question, if there are like significant budget changes or new directions from council, then we'd obviously need to revisit the plan and see if that's still applicable. So the strategic plan is always kind of like a living, evolving document. It can't be set in stone, but we do our best.
I guess I was wondering if you were needing to hold off on doing a lot of work on it right now, or if it's.
I think
You're
we're-
not
yeah.
really hamstrung, by it.
I don't
At
think
this
so, and I think we're probably going to sort of do our best job at planning for now, but the opening of the new facility is coming up within the next 6 months, and so that's going to probably, we're going to certainly take a look at operations and how things might change with that. We've done a lot of planning with the community, with the different commissions, with the council subcommittee, talking about what should the programming be like there. Well, we're going to open and we're going to find out how our planning, how well we planned or how accurately we matched what the community was saying what they wanted. So my guess is it'll need to be adapted anyway 6 months after, and that would be a really good time to check in on the strategic plan, would be 6 months after we open the new facility.
Thank you.
The comments? Okay. We can move to item E3, which is the tentative agenda calendar. Right, anybody?
Have it up here on the screen. For those at home and those in the building. Several call outs. See all the red text there. Just because there's a couple of potential joint meetings coming up, and I think we kind of came to a decision that we're going to stick with the earlier dates because the naming process is of great interest to the community, and it's time to get that, I think, resolved. And then we have some holidays, the November.
Actually, could we
Okay.
back up?
I'll stop.
Because I think the past practice had been to kind of rotate between the two commissions, either meeting on the Monday or meeting on the Wednesday.
Can I
Yeah.
ask a question
Yeah.
about that? Because I actually have been thinking about this month, since we talked about it last month. And we all know that this is going to be a big thing. You know, lots of people are passionate and want to comment. And I am a little bit confused about why we are having two joint meetings related to the same thing, which actually, instead of giving the public 4 opportunities to show up and give their comments, we're now streamlining it down to 2 opportunities. So when did we come up with this idea and why? Because I don't really remember. And if it was a commission meeting that I was sitting in and I snoozed through it, I apologize. But it seems to me that, you know, if people want to be heard and these are going to be lengthy meetings and people's time is maybe constrained, we should be giving them 4 meetings instead of 2. So,
But I have a question that piggybacks onto that, because I also find this process very confusing. I read the materials that you sent us reiterating what had been sent before about the naming process. And we're supposed to have these joint meetings. The timeline has changed, I know. And come up with up to 3 names for the overall center and up to 5. But where do we get those names? Is it something that we're hearing and then we're supposed to decide along with another commission on the spot, or just the logistics of it
and
all?
the
I
other
think are very
commission may
confusing.
have very different names than the library commission would have if people coming who have passion for libraries versus people who come who have passion for basketball or baseball or swimming might have very different names. So
And then the last question, all of this bundled together. The old name, Onetta Harris, was for what? The senior center or the whole community center, like the overall building, and the new one will have a library too. Were there separate rooms and programs that had names too, underneath the Onetta Harris umbrella?
So I can try to jump in on some of those, and that's one reason why we put the tentative agenda calendar on the agenda, because then it gives the commission the opportunity to discuss briefly like this, the topics that are on there. So I'll try to go in reverse order of the questions I just heard. So the previous center actually had multiple facilities on the same site. So the Onetta Harris Community Center was one of the buildings. It was the building that contained the gymnasium and some of the recreation center rooms. That was the Onetta Harris Community Center. Also on the same site in a separate building was the Menlo Park Senior Center. So that's the name of that facility. And also there was the Bellhaven Pool, its own facility. And then adjacent to that was the Bellhaven Youth Center. So those 4 facilities were on the same site.
Okay,
The building, Onetta Harris Community Center, was really the name of that one gymnasium recreation facility. Now, the overall campus kind of came to be referred to as the Onetta Harris Community Center,
Mhm.
even though it had those other facilities on it. So that name kind of had two purposes out there. One being the official name and the other just what everyone called that campus. There's also the Bellhaven Branch Library, which is currently at a different location, but will be in the new facility.
Right.
So the process that the city council set forth back in the early spring of this year, which is consistent with the city's naming policy, which the city council updated around that same time, is to have the Parks and Recreation Commission, or a commission, actually, how they updated it, at the city council's direction, undertake a public process for any renaming or naming of city facilities. And then the city council gave direction to have the Library Commission and Parks and Recreation Commission jointly undertake a process to identify a name for the overall new facility and names for each of those 5 components that are in it. And the recommendation that staff made, which council agreed with and directed us to do, is to work with the 2 commissions to basically have like a 1-month process with a meeting at the beginning to kick it off, and then a follow-up meeting a month later to go ahead and make the recommendations, and to identify up to 3 names, potential names for each of those components. And doesn't have to be up to 3, don't have to identify
they
names
each
for all of them.
Do they need to be named after someone or something? All those.
They do not necessarily, because for one thing, those functions all had names before, so, you know, it's not like there's no precedent. There are some precedents for names for some of these facilities. Others in the course of that process may suggest other names. Since the process really kind of got cut short before it began earlier this spring, it's kind of like we haven't really begun it yet. However, it's been sort of on everyone's minds for the past 6-7 months. And so it feels like maybe a little frustrating, like we haven't had any kind of process on this or progress on this. And that's just because it's been on pause for so long. So that's why just the 2 meetings with the joint commissions, and I think I don't want to speak for the city council members, but my recollection is they really preferred, for maximum transparency, to have everyone in the same room at the same time while it's being discussed, because otherwise there's too many separate conversations.
And if you remember, we did have a joint meeting with the Parks and Rec Commission where the MPCC naming was part of the process, and there was an online survey that was open. So we took a lot of public input through that and a lot of comments from folks who came out to that joint meeting at the branch and gave their opinions about what they thought the name of the facility should be.
Will all of that be encapsulated in a memo that goes out to the 2 commissions for the?
I think absolutely we have to talk about that in the staff report for the upcoming meeting.
So
in
you'll
September.
list, I mean, we all know a big group of people supported one name, a certain name. But are there other, I've never even heard any other suggestions, so if you've gotten some other ones, will we know in advance, or we'll just have to wait and see who shows up at the meeting?
Yeah, if we've gotten some other ones, we'll certainly put them into the staff report as well. We can have that discussion when we get to the meeting in September, which we're planning on holding at the branch library again as well.
And the city council has given a specific date for the 2 commissions to submit the findings and recommendations from
We're one of the sort of,
discussion.
well, one of the driving factors of the date is we have to actually make the signs. So that's one reason why when the city council said, hey, you know what, we'd rather take a time out here, focus on developing the programming and staffing plans for the new facility first, and then return to the naming when that is done. What's the sort of latest that we can return to the naming and still have the building open with an actual sign with the name on it on the building? And at that time, which is still pretty accurate, it's like October, November is kind of the latest that we need to have a name in order for the contractors to actually build the sign.
But we're just
So
gonna
that's
make a
pushing forward.
recommendation, city council is the one who's deciding.
City council makes the decision, yes, so the
Correct.
commissions have been asked by the city council to undertake a process and make some recommendations. And multiple choices is okay, but also a single choice also is okay. For, again, the overall campus and then each of the 5 components.
I'm trying to form the question, so. I think if I were to think about this meeting that's coming up, I have like a little bit of anxiety that we're walking into a lot of voices and a lot of public comment, and then. You know, the joint commissions are supposed to come up with a set of recommendations, so. As far as the process of that, are we, like, as the staff liaisons and, are you guys going to be sort of leading a process and saying like, here's how it's all going to work. Here's the public comment, here's the data inputs that we have in terms of what people have suggested, here's the factors that we should consider, and then there's a joint conversation. Is that reasonable in terms of what the process and the expectation is for the next 2 meetings?
Yeah, I think you've summarized it pretty well. I think, staff does not want to make any specific recommendations around names. We do not want to put our thumb on the scale or get anywhere near the scale, to be honest, but we have received a number of comments from kind of the first go around that we'll certainly present back out to the 2 commissions. There also is a fairly detailed set of criteria around how to select names, not how to select, but what names are eligible, to be applied to city facilities. As far as, the person, if it's a person, there has to be a connection to Menlo Park, and there has to be a certain period of time that is elapsed and so forth and so on. And of course, there are the precedent names that either are currently attached to some of these programs like Bellhaven Youth Center, for example, that, that's sort of obvious to point to those, or past names like Oneida Harris Community Center, which existed before. Prior to that, the Oneida Harris Community Center was known as the Bellhaven Community Center. So, we kind of refer to those things and just kind of call those to the attention. I think we would stop short of suggesting in particular names of people, but I think we'd just go with what's in the naming policy as far as here are the criteria, here's some precedent, so that you have some kind of framework, and then like, here's sort of the process for how this conversation will proceed. We're kind of thinking, maybe focusing on the individual elements first. Maybe some of them are fairly straightforward, like Menlo Park Senior Center or Bellhaven Library. And then I think the one that people are most interested in is the Oneida Harris Community Center and the name of the overall campus. So we need to kind of think about that and work it out, but we do want to have some kind of framework, because otherwise it might be difficult to get to a conclusion.
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, I think it would be really helpful to have at least a line in the sand on, we now have between the 2 commissions, like 12 people. How do we self-organize, or, hopefully we don't, right? How do we follow a process to say we've collected all of this data, and then do we each shortlist a list of names and then we vote, or, like that process could be really.
Or even if if the first meeting is gonna be designated as the listening tour, is the first meeting where, I expect we're gonna get a slew of public comments. So is the first one really to find out what names does the public want? And then I'm wondering if there even should maybe be a subcommittee between the 2 commissions that sort of does a little bit of work to then present to the 2 commissions at the second meeting, where then we maybe aren't listening to the public anymore. We're just sorting through everything that has been collected since day 1 of announcing the name is up for discussion, which is 3 or 4 years, right?
Well, I have a question that may either make the process longer or shorter, depending on how you interpret this language, but in the naming or changing facility city council resolution, the first paragraph says it shall be the policy of the city not to change the name of any existing city facility, particularly one whose name has city, regional, or national significance, etc. So is this new building considered existing? Does it fit within that, or is it something, are we, because this gives a lot of weight
Right.
to the names that were used before. And so are we interpreting that this new set of buildings is considered under that definition of existing, or is it not?
Yeah, great question. So just to go back, I'll come back to this. So, as you collecting comments, suggestions in the first meeting makes a lot of sense. And I think some form of review, whether there's a subcommittee involved or not, it's just as far as like eligibility and consistency with the policy would be kind of like an obvious first cut, right? So other than like if someone suggests Mickey Mouse, we can put it on the board. But then when we go through the review, we'll say, well, that's not eligible because there's not a connection to Menlo Park or something like that. And so when we come back, we've got some response and eligibility criteria around the names that were suggested. And then getting back to the policy itself, there's sort of the main thing with written policies is what does it actually say? And what are the definitions of these terms? And a new facility, this is a new facility.
So
I
it's
think
not
it's
a new
pretty
one.
irrefutable that it's a
City
new
Has the city
facility.
attorney weighed in on that?
Yes, I mean, that is the intent of
Yeah.
the policy. It always was that an
Oh, that
existing
we're not-
facility
We're starting, okay.
is an existing facility. So that would be like if you were to change the name of this facility
Got it.
without building a new one.
Okay.
But I mean.
Now, at the same time, though, it's really replacing a facility that was there before.
Mhm.
So in spirit, it is kind of a continuation or a next iteration
Yeah.
of something that had been there before. So there's probably is some weight that should be given to that and more like the spirit of what the policy is trying to say. So I think that's what makes this a particularly tricky
Yeah.
process. I
Yeah,
don't
It's a
envy
tightrope.
the commission's position or the city council's position because, it's a very sensitive topic
Yep.
for a lot of people in the community. So, we do want to focus on, what does the policy actually say? And it is a new facility. It's not an existing facility. That doesn't mean that it can't bear the same name, and it doesn't mean that it can't have a different name. All it means is that, it's not really subject to a prohibition on changing the name if it's not an existing facility. However, there is a whole process in there.
Yeah.
About naming facilities in general. So there's enough material there, I think, for making those assessments based on eligibility. What does the policy say? What are the criteria? But it does really come down to at the end of the process, or needs to be recommendations and ultimately a selection by the city council.
I think kind of coming back to the process, though, if we should decide, as Commissioner Hadrovic was suggesting, that we have an initial meeting to take input and then another meeting to review, it might be helpful for us to communicate that as early and as clearly as possible, given that I think there was another meeting earlier on when we briefly touched on this topic and someone was like, I don't understand the process, that we don't know where to go. And this has been going on for a long time. This sort of was the sentiment expressed there, that I wouldn't want people to come to that second meeting thinking they still had room for input. We're already in this sort of review session. So just trying to be clear with the public, because there's so many impassioned members of the community. Is that the one window, the September meeting, for them to comment? And then, October, it's sort of a deliberation phase. If that turns out to be true, we should try to be really open and clear about it.
Good point. So I'll take this opportunity to clarify that the process that the city council directed is for there to be a 30-day comment period, which the September meeting at this point in time would be the beginning,
I think so. Okay.
right? So, but true, as far as like the public meetings, it's really kind of bookended by those two public meetings. But we certainly will be reopening the survey. Expect to get more in the suggestion box by emails, all
But
kinds
if
of
that
other.
was, if that was a
Yeah.
30-day period and then our meetings were 31 days apart or so, then people have an opportunity after the first meeting that we would have all the data that is public input by email or suggestion box or letters or whatever, between taking actual public comment at the first meeting and then anything that follows it in different communication ways.
There's not 30 days between the two meetings.
Yeah, that's where, I think we when we were talking about the agenda
Need to shift
calendar,
the
back to the
second one.
calendar. And I think we got on this topic because I was talking about how the two commissions had been kind of rotating between the Monday and the Wednesday. And so if the September 18th date sticks, which is the Monday, that's the
Yeah.
Library Commission's day. Then in October, potentially going with the
19th.
Wednesday instead,
Yeah,
which the Wednesday of that week is October 18th. So it's actually only the third Wednesday of the month. Typically, the Parks and Recreation Commission meets on the fourth Wednesday, but either way, there's gonna be some change in one of the commission's normal day. So that's where I was kind of going, like, well, maybe that October date is gonna be the Wednesday instead. That's
well,
30
maybe
days
it should
after.
be on the 25th, which is the fourth. So
When
that
is
you
Could
that?
have,
potentially do that, which is the Parks and
25th.
Recreation Commission's regular.
that's
meeting
the,
day.
we're saying there needs to be 30 days, plus you need a little time to collate all the stuff, because if people only can come and
Good
speak
point.
at the September 18th one,
Right.
then you have a 30-day period where people can email, fill out a survey, etc. You need a couple days to pull that all together so that on that.
Right.
Meeting on the,
Jotting
we-
that down.
Did we
Yeah.
do public comment on this, on the calendar?
Not yet on the calendar.
We just went straight into discussing. Because there's a lot to talk about.
How many commissioners do we need for quorum? It's a.
A majority of both, so you would need 5 from each.
Cause the last
4
time
from each.
that
4 from
we
each,
got
sorry.
together,
Okay,
there
I'm
wasn't
definitely
a quorum.
missing October 16th,
what was that?
unless it moves.
Yeah, I think we're already kind of moving away from the October 16th date, and
Okay.
it would most likely be the 18th or the 25th, which are Wednesdays.
I need the 25th.
So then we would do both
But
of
it
the
sounds like
meetings
we
on
could
Wednesdays, not one on a
No, I
Monday?
think
No, the
if
first
we're
one, the
sticking
18th
with
would
the
be-
rotating, so whenever there's a joint meeting, what, there's like, if it was on the at the Library Commission's day the previous time, then the next time it'll
Oh,
be
the
the Parks and Rec.
16th isn't a Monday.
Right,
This, all of these dates are
It's
Mondays.
a Monday.
The
Right,
eighth,
but-
September 18th is a Monday, October 16th is a Monday.
So you're
What we're
saying
is
doing October 18th, which is a Wednesday,
correct.
and then,
Or
oh, I'm
October-
sorry,
or
keeping
the
September
25th.
18th,
correct.
then going to, sorry, I thought you were
Right.
talking about September when you.
Oh,
Said-
no, I was talking about October.
Got it,
I
got
just-
it,
I
got
didn't
it.
wanna
Yeah,
leave-
so
I didn't wanna leave the
October-
commission quorumless.
Yeah,
That was my
October
concern.
25th sounds like a smart way to do it. Then you've got like 40-45 days in between the two, right?
Well, about 37, but
Oh.
it gives us the 30-day period plus some time to prepare the materials for the meeting. That makes sense. And
But
it's not,
possibly
not
that-
Halloween, so that's good.
A follow-up meeting around Thanksgiving though, which could be tough. Like if October was not sufficient.
No, because you said
It
that
has to go.
council
to
wants
the
to hear
council.
from us by the end of October.
Yeah, anything could happen, but I think really the
Okay.
focus would be coming to.
It sounds
a
like we have
recommendation
to
in
walk
October.
out of that October meeting with our recommendations set.
Got it.
So,
That would be
But
the
I-
goal. We
but I would
really be
think
pushing for
If
that.
we hear from people on September 18th, probably be a long meeting with a lot of people talking. And then we get a report of everything that people put in. We should be able to come in and. I don't know how we're gonna get however many people, 15 people to agree on.
is this something that the city would postcard about? Is this the type of decision?
Yes, we did it before. You may recall in the spring and, we'll do it again, just so people know what's happening.
And will that go citywide or just in the Bellhaven district?
I think last time we did the physical postcards in the District 1, Bellhaven Bayfront, and then we did electronic for the rest of the city.
Mhm.
That seemed to be
Yeah.
okay. People didn't object to that.
So there's two questions. So then, in the first meeting, the September 18th-ish meeting, there'll be a set of initial findings from previous phase you provide, which people can react to, and then obviously add comment on
Mhm.
after 30 days after. There'll be something for us to react to in that meeting. It's not just process, it's actually, here are some few things from the initial phase that for discussions upon discussion, etc.
Yeah, I think so, because we do have that material. We did collect quite a bit of information that we sort of didn't have the opportunity to share. It's basically comments from the survey for the most part. And I think, keeping the process moving is advantageous for everyone, so we will, right out of the gate, have some material to react to.
And we can, for each one of the 5 names in the overall facility, there's 3 names that we can recommend. Without necessarily having to state a preference for the 3, we could say, here are 3 for the overall facility, for the council to make a decision on. Is that right? Or are we
And that's
actually
consistent with
to-
what the process says. It says the commission may recommend up to 3 per option here.
Okay. Not trying to abdicate responsibility to the commission, but if there is very difficult discussions and there's a lot of difference of opinions, there is opportunity to say we can't essentially make a decision on a name between the joint commissions, but there are 2 or 3 for which the council can have a decision. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but
So we
Yes.
come up with a joint report and recommendations, not separate commission
I guess it
recommendations.
joins between the 2 commissions. Is that-
Yeah, and that's the reason for the joint sessions.
And then will we take turns where you chair one of them and the Parks and Recs chairs the other meeting?
That's what we've done in the past, but
Yeah.
usually it also varies. It also depends on attendance, if the chair is in attendance.
So would it be fair to say that this group's recommendation is that that first meeting in September is marketed as a public input forum? Please come, give us all your input. We're collecting everything. Start of a 30-day public input period. And then the
Yes.
second October meeting is intended as a public session for the combined committees to discuss and come down to up to 3.
I mean, we
that-
always
is that
have to
fair?
take
Yeah.
public
Okay.
comment on anything that we're doing. So we're probably, I would expect, we will be sitting through lengthy public comments on the second night, even if technically we are done taking.
Correct, but I think the
Names,
point
right.
is if we were to make
Right,
it very
right, right.
clear from
Yeah,
a
yeah.
marketing standpoint, there's
Mhm.
one meeting.
Yeah.
This meeting is for comment and this meeting is,
Yeah.
please comment, of course, but it's a deliberation meeting. That
Yeah.
you're all welcome to attend that.
I
Sets the tone,
totally
right?
agree with you. I think we've got so much work to do in 2 short meetings with so many people involved. That if we are not really understanding what we're doing, how we're moving the process, we don't have time to learn on the spot. Okay, this is how we're gonna organize ourselves and this is how we're gonna proceed. We really, I think, need to have that plan walking in so that it's as stress-free as possible, given the heightened emotions and passions and probably quite a lot of input. But it sounds like we're, like, between us, we kind of have an idea of, okay, this is how we want to do it. I don't know, you attend the Parks and Rec meetings. Are they saying the same thing that we're saying in terms of how they want to try to roll out those 2 meetings?
Yeah, I think everybody involved, especially from the commissions, wants, first of all, the process to just get underway, get to its conclusion, and for there to be kind of really clear criteria and a framework and a process for working through this discussion and decision making. And that does kind of already exist in the form of the policy and the city council's direction, but I think, you know, and I think staff shares it, just a lot of apprehension about like, let's just kind of get to it and let's get to the place where we can actually see it laid out and dive into it. And so we've been kind of on pause for several months, and I think that's led to, you know, we haven't really been in a position because we haven't started the process yet to just sort of lay that out in that level of detail. But we do have the advantage of having had plenty of time to think about it, plenty of time to receive other incidental commentary about it. There were comments at the city council meeting just last week. But I do think we should be prepared for a lot of public comments that evening, for the meeting to take a little bit of time. So I wrote in my notes here to make sure that we have snacks available, so that we can make sure that we have all the nourishment we need to get to the end of the day.
Like star testing, we're gonna have juice and string.
We'll get you whatever you.
Are there other groups besides our joint commission that will be presenting reports that could have different names on them to the city council for their final? I mean, are they taking
If
reports
there
from?
are,
several groups?
they, at this point, the process that the city council has set forth is for those groups to send that input through this process. that the
Got it,
commission is
okay.
doing.
So I'm sorry, I know I keep belaboring this, but just so that I feel like when we get there, we're, like, for example, the committee, the committee that was put together by the city council related to the Bellhaven project, would they be submitting to us like a formal report or recommendation on whatever they have gathered? Like, would it be something we would expect to get outside, amicus briefs, kind of like outside,
Yeah,
outside
I've
reports from those
not-
types of groups?
I've not heard any indication from the Menlo Park Community Campus Subcommittee of the City Council. That's Vice Mayor Taylor and Councilmember Nash. I've not heard any indication that they plan to submit a report from the working group or from the subcommittee about naming. They'll just be weighing in their roles as city council members.
Yeah, I wasn't
Got
thinking
it.
of them. I was thinking of the rest of that committee that they put together, but
Not
I guess
aware that
because
that
they're on
group
it.
is
they
gonna
might-
make, they're
okay.
kind of an informal working group. I mean, that could change, but I've not heard any indication that there's gonna be some recommendation from that group. And my sense of the composition of that group is that the group members all have kind of different perspectives on this issue, so I can't
Got it.
see
Okay.
how they would come to like a unified recommendation anyway.
Interesting.
That's good
Yeah.
to know. Thank you.
Mhm.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is related to our calendar because like looking at the calendar, you've just got 2 items for each one, naming, but then policies. And I'm assuming that the second line that's policies is just being crystal clear about what the naming policy dictates we follow. I mean, this is the
Well,
only thing on the
I
agenda.
think,
for
I think
those
it's
who are-
aspirational and it's maybe more of like information that's being transmitted with the packet, but we do want to kind of keep inching forward on preparing for the new facility opening. So kind of similar to how there were some library policies in the packet tonight, we like to keep bringing Menlo Park Community Campus policies forward and updates about how are things going with the programming, city council making a decision about the staffing proposal, and at a minimum, having some informational updates in the packet, even if there's no time spent acting on them.
So, okay,
Because
so
we're just
we'll-
cognizant that the building is nearing completion and we still have other work that we're trying to get accomplished in readiness.
You're just prepping us for like a possible 2 a.m. end time.
Yeah.
Hopefully not
Yeah.
quite that late.
So-
I think the
so-
record is 11
Yeah,
p.m.
okay.
So we're
not too
thinking
bad.
September
That's sleeping
18th and
fast.
October 25th. Are those the?
That's what
The
we're
2 days.
thinking, right?
Library will be closing in 20 minutes. If you have
You've got to
anything you'd
clear
like
that
to
with
check
the
out,
other
please bring it
committee
to the
too.
front desk.
Right, and we meet with the Parks and Rec Commission Wednesday.
Did you take public comment on that?
No, so maybe before we go on to the rest of the calendar, like, do we have any public comments?
At this time, if you'd like to make a comment on the tentative agenda calendar for the Library Commission, please use that raise hand function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you're dialing in, press *9. There's no in-person comment. Do not see any comment from our virtual participants. One more thing to call out. During the discussion in June, I believe, when we were talking about commission representatives to library affiliate groups, we had discussed having a social gathering of affiliate group members and the library commission. So I just wanted to sort of put that back out there so that it doesn't get lost somewhere because there's a lot of business going on. But commissioners had expressed interest in having a social function where it would not be like this. It would not be a noticed meeting. Social functions you're allowed to have. and not worry about a quorum. In that sense. So just putting that back out there, if you're interested. I can maybe. Make some inquiries. Try to do a little bit of logistics work behind the scenes and maybe come back with something informationally to you guys, so you know.
Is that something we would do as like a little event here in the library?
Yeah, like a mixer here in the library.
And it would be with the foundation and the Friends of the Library and
I think the group.
Historical Association.
Historical
Association.
Association, yeah, the groups that you had talked about were Literacy Partners, Foundation, Friends, and Historical Association.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Just to gauge interest and everything else.
Okay.
So just one other on the calendar, I think the November and December dates. And also the January and February dates may need to be. So I just want to check.
They may,
plan of action.
and we can check in with you guys as we get closer. The January and February, because the third Mondays of January and February are recurring national holidays. We move those meetings, usually a week later, has been the practice. So just sort of highlighting that. And then
Well,
close,
we pause on that though, you could, like this evening, just say, yeah, we're gonna change that to the fourth Monday like we do every year, that would be fine. We just didn't wanna presume.
and then for meetings that come close to holidays. Just a reminder, so the Monday before Thanksgiving, and then that's the December meeting is a week before Christmas. So just throwing it out there that there are.
In terms of our calendar and things that we put on it, are we going to revisit the topic of the budget at all, just with, you know, a report on where it is, what, if there's still some, you know, stuff that might benefit us as individuals or a commission, asking the city council to consider our thoughts or.
Yeah, so right now, the MPCC staffing request is tentatively set to go back to city council September 12th, I believe. So that's where having some MPCC policy updates.
So that might be something you would have. talked
Yeah,
about.
at
Got it.
least like an informational update. And then typically the mid-year budget review, which is your work plan earlier this evening, you know, it's part of your work plan to look at the budget. We typically do a mid-year budget update in February of each year with the city council, so that would come to this commission, like in January, probably.
Okay.
So we could even add that to the tentative calendar, so we don't lose sight of it.
And I'd like to follow up on your suggestion that could we now just make a decision rather than leave it up in the air on changing some of those dates near holidays so that we can have them, the correct dates on our calendar now and.
Should we wait until the other two members of, I mean, if we had a meeting where everybody was here, I don't know if,
Well, the January and February one
they-
could
if
be
they have-
done pretty easily.
Well, January. and
Because those are going
February
to have to
are
be.
holidays, we can't have. a
yeah, we've
meeting on a
always
holiday.
switched it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So should
so,
we propose for January and February that we move to the next following Monday and we can check with the other commissioners?
Check next month, for example.
yeah, about November and December. So the 15th would go to the 22nd
February
And,
19th to the
of
6th.
January, and then February would go from the 19th to the 26th.
And then sometimes the holiday meetings get canceled, right?
Yes,
Yeah, the challenge is, 2 months in a row, if there are no meetings, it's, can get a little dicey, especially with the new facility potentially opening in early in the following year. So although maybe in a less eventful year, it might be fine to say, oh, hey, see you in a few months. A little leery of saying, let's just cancel November and December. But also acknowledging that the week of Thanksgiving and 1 week before Christmas is typically tough for a lot of folks, just because there's vacations and stuff like that. So
Maybe-
that's why we want to just put it up there, maybe
You could
there's an
do
earlier
a
date or
whole-
a different day of the week or
I
something.
mean, Nick, you could, I mean, for me, the November and December dates are fine. I know I'm gonna be around.
Yeah, I think I will do
And
some
so-
polling to make sure
Mhm.
that
Maybe,
we'll have a quorum,
yeah,
because there's no reason to call a meeting if we know we're not going to have a quorum of
We've also in
commissioners.
the, sometimes in the past, although the past few years have been crazy, but I seem to recall. Occasionally like, or I remember way in the past that like the December meeting was a very short meeting and then we had a little holiday. Like
dinner.
goodwill
Mhm.
dinner for the commission too, so that I think that we had like 10 minutes was our meeting. To approve the minutes and I don't know if there's any just, if we wanted to do something like that again this year or not, or.
Was a nice
So that's-
tradition. and the
That's something that we should really talk
commissioners
about when we're
enjoyed-
talking about are people even around.
And,
what
and
do
the
we want
commissioners
to-
enjoyed that in the past, certainly the staff did, so. Keeping that in mind, that December is often the time that type of, activity happens. I just note that in November this year. So we'll do the polling, but the, Monday, the 20th, which is the third Monday, the typical day is the Monday before Thanksgiving. So the 27th is the Monday after Thanksgiving. Could be an option so that you're retaining like the November meeting. At least you have a touch point in November, and then maybe the December meeting is canceled and instead there's a dinner or something like that. So just put that out there and we can come back to it maybe next month, but we'll be here before we know it.
I like the idea of polling. I think it's a
Yeah.
good
Yeah,
idea.
yeah.
And at this point, it's too early to book tickets, so it's hard to say.
Mhm.
All right,
Anything else on the calendar?
Individual commission reports, I just actually wanted to mention something. I don't know if any of you read the New York Times on Sundays, but yesterday there was a really interesting article in the Times about New York City library in Brooklyn issuing 11 library cards featuring Jay-Z, and they had a huge uptick in people becoming library card holders. And I thought that was a really, really cool thing. And I wondered if maybe that was something that we would want to consider as a tie-in to when we do open the new library. I don't know what the budget for that type of thing is, but even, when we're thinking about this naming process, and there might be some really great community way to honor some individuals with library cards that you can sign up to get in the opening days of the Bellhaven Library. So I just read that and my mind started going, oh my gosh, we could do something really fun with this. So I wanted to just suggest it.
that's a great suggestion. I mean, the Library Foundation has provided for their donors customized library cards, but they've also sponsored design contests for the community before. So that's what I thought of, is maybe they
Yeah.
would be interested in sponsoring a design contest for
Library will be
cards
closed
for the
in
new
10 minutes.
library.
If you're
So
working
that's a great
on
idea.
Please
Yeah.
start saving your work and
I
shut
have
it
a
down.
little
Restrooms are
report.
now locked.
I went to the music performance at the Bellhaven Library on Saturday, the ukulele. And he was fantastic, and there was a great turnout. I think there was a bus from the senior center, I saw the bus when I left, but the whole, all the chairs were full, different ages, a lot of seniors, but there were some young people there too, and people my age and whatever. Anyway, it was very well attended and everyone was really positive, and he was an excellent performance. So,
That's fantastic.
so, good job.
Other reports? Okay. Then we can adjourn. So the next meeting of the Library Commission will be joint 18th.
At the Bellhaven branch.
Library, and with public participation in person and by Zoom. So I'll adjourn the meeting at 7:51 p.m. That's all.
Thank you all very much.
Great,
Thank
thank you.